You're in a group, the conversation is flowing, someone tells a story, someone else jumps in with a joke, laughter ripples around the circle, and you're there, nodding, smiling at the right moments, tracking who's talking to whom, noticing the tiny pause before someone interrupts, clocking the way one person suddenly goes quiet when another arrives. You could speak, you have thoughts, good ones actually, but you don't, you watch. Maybe you've even been called out for it. You're so quiet. What are you thinking? Why don't you ever say anything? And you laugh it off, shrug, say something vague, but inside, you're very much present, just not participating the way people expect. And here's the thing most people miss. Watching conversations instead of joining them isn't shyness, it's not social anxiety, and it's definitely not emptiness. In many cases, it's a very specific psychological orientation toward people, power, and information. If you've ever felt more comfortable observing a room than becoming the room, stay with me. There's more going on here than silence. Let's start with the first kind of watcher. You've seen them. You might be one. This person enters a gathering like they're entering a theater. They don't rush to the stage. They choose a seat with a good view. They notice dynamics immediately. Who commands attention without trying, who over-explains, who laughs too loud at their own jokes. They're not judging exactly, they're mapping. Imagine them at a dinner table. The conversation bounces fast. Opinions, stories, interruptions. They sip their drink, eyes moving subtly, absorbing everything. They don't interrupt because psychologically, interrupting feels like breaking the data stream. Why talk when you're still collecting information? People like this often grew up in environments where understanding the room mattered. Maybe they had to read moods carefully. Maybe speaking at the wrong time had consequences. Over time, their brain learned something powerful. Observation equals safety and advantage. So instead of jumping in, they wait. They prefer to understand the pattern before adding a piece to it. Their silence isn't absence, it's processing. If this is you, you might notice something interesting. When you finally do speak, people often listen because you've already tracked the emotional temperature. You don't talk just to talk. You talk when it adds something. Does that feel familiar? Then there's another type, quieter, but for a very different reason. This person isn't scanning for dominance or patterns. They're listening for depth. They sit in conversations, hoping, almost waiting for something real to emerge. Not updates, not performance, something honest. Picture them at a casual hangout. The conversation stays light, work complaints, memes, weekend plans. Everyone's talking, but nothing's landing. So they stay quiet, not because they have nothing to say, but because nothing yet feels worth saying something about. Psychologically, these people are meaning-oriented. Their inner world is rich, layered, nuanced. They don't enjoy surface-level exchanges, not because they're superior, but because those exchanges don't stimulate their inner life. Talking just to fill space feels draining, so they wait. They're listening for a question that actually opens something. Pause long enough for a real thought, a moment where someone drops the mask, even slightly. And when that moment comes, they lean in. Their voice changes. Suddenly, they're fully present. Sometimes they surprise everyone, including themselves. If you've ever felt like conversations move too fast for your inner rhythm, this might be your category. Now let's talk about a third kind of watcher, one people misunderstand the most. This person watches because they don't want to be pulled into a role they didn't choose. Every conversation has invisible scripts. The funny one, the smart one, the agreeable one, therapist, the contrarian. Some people sense these roles instantly, and something in them resists. They've learned, often unconsciously, that once you speak, people start assigning you a function. Expectations form, patterns lock in. So they hang back, not out of fear, but out of autonomy. Imagine them in a group discussion. Someone expresses a strong opinion. Others pile on, either agreeing loudly or pushing back just as loud. This watcher notices the pressure building. If they speak, they'll be slotted, labeled, interpreted, and they don't want that. Not yet. Psychologically, this is about control over self-definition. Watching gives them space. It lets them decide if and when they want to be seen, and how. If this resonates, you might notice you speak more freely one-on-one than in groups, or you open up only after you've watched how someone responds to others first. That's not guardedness, that's selectivity. But here's the twist. Not all watchers are calm. Some are quietly overstimulated. This type sits in a conversation and feels like there's too much happening at once. Voices overlapping, facial expressions, tone shifts, background noise. Their brain is working overtime just to keep up, so they withdraw into observation mode. They're not bored, they're regulated. From a psychological standpoint, this is often tied to high sensitivity, not in a fragile way, but in a perceptual way. Their nervous system picks up more signals. Watching instead of talking helps reduce cognitive load. Talking requires timing, tone management, word choice, emotional calibration. Watching lets them stay engaged without adding to the overload. If you've ever left a social event exhausted despite barely speaking, this might explain why. And then there's one more type, the most paradoxical one. This person watches because they actually enjoy people this way. They find something soothing, even intimate, about being a witness. They like seeing how others express themselves. They feel connected without needing to perform connection. In conversation, they're like an audience member who doesn't need to be on stage to feel part of the show. Psychologically, this reflects an internalized sense of belonging. They don't need constant verbal affirmation to feel included. Their presence is enough for them. Interestingly, these people often form deep bonds quietly. They remember details others forget. They understand people without demanding to be understood in return. And yet, they're often mislabeled as distant, which brings us to an important point. Modern culture rewards visibility, speaking up, sharing, broadcasting thoughts in real time. Silence gets interpreted as disinterest, insecurity, or lack of opinion, but that's a cultural bias, not a psychological truth. Watching conversations is a form of engagement, a different channel, one that prioritizes perception over projection. And here's something rarely talked about. Watchers often see things participants miss. They notice who talks more when they're nervous, who changes their tone around authority, who disappears emotionally halfway through the conversation. They see the subtext. Sometimes that's why they stay quiet. Once you see the layers, it's hard to pretend the surface is all there is. Now you might be wondering, when does watching become a problem? It becomes limiting only when it stops being a choice. If you're watching because you don't feel allowed to speak, that's different. If you're watching because you assume your voice won't matter, that's not observation, that's erasure. But if you're watching because it feels natural, grounding, or even enjoyable, there's nothing broken there. In fact, some of the most insightful people in history were watchers first, speakers second. So let me ask you this, when you're quiet in a group, what's actually happening inside you? Are you mapping, waiting for meaning, protecting your autonomy, regulating your senses, or simply enjoying the view? Maybe it's a mix. Maybe it changes depending on the room. And maybe, just maybe, you don't need to explain it, because not everyone is here to talk. Some people are here to see. If this made you reflect on your own habits, sit with that for a moment. And if you're curious to explore more of the quiet patterns that shape how we move through the world, you know where to find this channel.
And one more thing worth sitting with before we end. People who watch more than they join often carry an unspoken question inside. Is it better to be understood or to understand? Most conversations reward the first. Watchers quietly choose the second. That choice shapes how they move through the world. They're often slower to speak, slower to trust, slower to react, faster to notice shifts others miss. They sense when a joke is masking insecurity, when enthusiasm is performative, when someone wants to be seen but doesn't know how to ask. And sometimes that awareness comes with loneliness, because when you see more, it can feel harder to jump in casually. It's not that you're above the conversation, it's that you're already past it emotionally. You're responding to what's underneath while everyone else is still exchanging what's on top. That can create a strange tension. You feel connected, yet separate, present, yet unseen. If that resonates, here's something grounding to remember. Your way of engaging is not incomplete, it's simply less loud. The world needs people who talk, but it also needs people who listen without trying to steer, who notice without exploiting, who understand without demanding space. And you don't have to turn yourself into a talker to be valid. But here's the gentle challenge. You can choose moments to step forward, not to perform, not to compete, just to let your perspective land when it feels true. Watching gives you clarity. Speaking gives that clarity a voice. You don't have to join every conversation, just the ones that matter to you. So ask yourself, when you do speak, what do you want it to mean? And when you don't, what are you protecting or preserving or simply enjoying? If this reflection landed somewhere personal, take a second with it. And if you want to keep exploring the quieter sides of human behavior, the patterns we rarely name but often live, this space is here for that.